Okay, so I've trimmed all these into separate pieces, cuffs, hem, move them out of the way. Just gonna put the neck in first. First thing to do, I'm just gonna use my fingers just to push open that seam allowance, fold it back on itself, fold the neck in half. Okay, just getting it ready so I can put it into the hole of the neck. The garment itself is inside out. This is the back neck. So what I'm going to do is look at it and say, well, actually, I want the seam to be on the left-hand side of the back neck rather than in the center. So I'm going to place it here, find the middle of the back neck, and that is where I'm going to pin. So I'm going to take the collar and just pin it in the middle of the back neck with the seam on the left-hand side. So when it's on the body, it'll be on the back of the left neck. I'm then going to fold this piece in half and find the middle of it here, and then I'm going to find the middle of the front neck here. I'm going to take that folded piece, I'm going to place it into the middle of the front neck here. Now my preference is usually just to stitch with 2 pins, one at the centre front, one at the centre back, because it's fairly straightforward. But what you can do is stretch the neck in now and pin it. If you wanted more stability, you could take it when it was stretched in, you know where it's going to match to, and you could just pin it here at this edge. And then you could do the same on the other side as well. But all I'm going to do is stretch this into shape now. I usually like to start stitching around about where the bulk is there. So this is stretched out, I'm going to place it underneath. And I'm just going to now start stitching here, just to start to hold it in. Make sure my edges are lined and they're both going to catch. I get close to the pin, I can remove it. I can stitch to where it was. Then I can take the garment and I can just stretch the neck in here. So I'm trying to keep an equal amount of stretch all the way around, and then I can stitch in. Now when I come to this side, this is the back neck. I want the seams for the raglan to go towards the sleeve. So I'm just going to make sure that's the way the seam is. And then when I come here, match up, I'm going to push this seam towards the back because I want it to be into the sleeve. And I'm just, again, going to stitch around and capture that in. Now, I can just roll the fabric to make sure the edges aren't, pull that bit out, just make sure it's on the edge here. And I can stitch around. I can see where the front neck is here. So I can come round towards that. Just might need to pinch the fabric and pull it out the way. Pull the pin, because I don't want to stitch over it. Come up to the edge. Now, I can draw it out under tension again. Push this behind and then use the fabric to push the roll of the sweatshirting out the way. I've got a tail there. Draw that out the way. And I can just keep stitching up. When I come to here, again, I want this seam allowance pushed underneath towards the sleeve. I can pull the pin out from there, stitch up to here. You can see now I've only got to finish this edge off. Again, I can pull this back and then draw it back over itself just to roll that edge there. Stitch up to here, and then I can see where I've got to finish off. I'll pull the tail out the way here, push that seam allowance under so it's facing into the sleeve. Okay, stitch off, collar's in. Okay, next I'm going to put the cuff in. So I take the cuff, same thing again, open it up, fold the seam allowance back a little bit so it's either side, fold it over itself, fold the cuff back on. So now I've got the cuff as it's going to be inserted in. There's a couple of different ways of doing that. So I'm going to go through one way for this side here. So I'm going to place the cuff like this. The garment is inside out. I'm matching the cuff to the seam here, and what I'm going to do is pull the cuff into place, roll back the edge of this sweatshirt if I can, place it underneath, start to stitch, but keeping the sweatshirt cuff under tension, pulled into the sleeve hem. Just got to be careful not to apply too much tension to it that I snap the needles. So I might take a bit off using my fingers here, but I'm just working it now through. Okay, and then you can see I just might need to pull that bit over to be next to it. Pull the tail out of the way, stitch over, round for a little bit, cut off. Okay, and I'll probably use the identical method for the other side. So I'm just going to take the sleeve, it's the wrong way, pull it so it's the wrong way through, take that label off, take the cuff, open it over my hand, fold these open, fold it over itself, and then fold it back on itself. So now I have the cuff as it's going to be made up. Place it into the end of the sleeve, matching the seams. Draw it out so it's under a bit of tension. Try and get it so I can start it. Up goes the presser foot, and I can begin to stitch. And again, I can just pull it into place. Try and make sure all the edges are lined up with each other. Okay, try and keep it under constant tension just to balance the stretch across all of the sleeves so it sits nicely in. Okay, and that'll be that. So one thing about this machine is it has the ability to create this, so a sleeve arm essentially. So now I could stitch around this. This might make it a lot easier to feed around, but I choose just to do it on the flat rather than use a cylinder arm on it. You just got to make sure this tab stays backwards, probably needs tightening up, so when it goes through it hooks on that clamp and doesn't get in the way of the needles. So the last thing to do is the waistband, which I'll show in the next video.